For 6 healthy, happy years, my buddy Brian and I had a good thing going. Our apartment was a rent-controlled gem located just outside Manhattan. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, a luxurious view of the city, and nobody to whine about our equally shitting eating habits, bachelor lifestyle, and bad hygiene. Really, what more could you want? That all ended when the dickhead had to go and get himself married. Brian gave me the heads up 2 months ahead of time. The plan was that he would propose to his girlfriend Olivia and then surprise her with their very own new home. I was happy for the guy, but at the same time, I knew that my options for a new roommate were pretty slim. I had heard that it was not uncommon for young, working professionals in the metro area to find roommates on Craigslist. In my case, that option was an unfortunate necessity. While the rent was reasonable, it was more than I could ever afford on my own. At that point, it was either find somebody else or move back to mom's house at age 30. I hit the classified sections with full force. The weird thing was that almost nobody ever responded. I have to be honest, my marketing skills were not amazing. It was hard to think of the ad as anything different than a Tinder description. 30-year-old male looking for a cool, understanding roommate, keeps normal hours, and must have employment or means to pay rent. I waited a month and a half until hearing anything back at all. The guy who eventually answered seemed normal enough. The email said he was a young professional like myself and worked at a financial firm in Brooklyn. After a couple of messages back and forth, we agreed to meet at a breakfast spot in town. I was nervous that meeting. Brian and Liv made fun of me for my outfit, which was nothing more than a button-down t-shirt and some khakis. "I hope your new girlfriend can keep you happy, Matt," Olivia said. I muttered some witty retort, but I was a bit worried. Brian and I had become brothers over the years, and this new guy sounded a little weird from his last email. There are some complications with my sleeping situation we can discuss in person. It was raining the morning of our meeting, but the restaurant was only a block away from my place. I ran down the block in a hurry, aware of the fact that I was late. When I walked up to the front door, there was a man standing outside in a gray trench coat with his eyes on his watch. I would have ignored him entirely if he didn't address me directly. "Hey, Craigslist user first breath 1? It's 10:05. I spun around awkwardly to greet him. "Hey, sorry about that. I lost track of time. Mike, right?" The man nodded and lifted the brim of his cringeworthy bowler cap. Other than that, he was normal looking, with mutton chop sideburns that met with a thinly groomed beard. To be honest, he looked like every guy from my high school. We went inside and ordered breakfast. To my surprise, he ordered the same thing as me, 2 pancakes and a side of extra crispy bacon. The conversation was pleasant and normal enough. The rent was right up Mike's alley, the commute was close, and he would be able to bring and park his car in the lot. After an hour of pleasantries, mostly about work, we finished our breakfast and he agreed he would move in next week. Somehow the topic of his sleeping habits slipped his mind. I guess I was too scared to ask. Move-in day was chaotic. Somehow, we screwed up the schedule so severely that Mike was moving in during the time Brian was moving out. By the end of the night, I was exhausted and went to bed around 10. When I woke up, the watch on my nightstand was the only light, and it told me it was well past 3 in the morning. It's not unusual for me to get up in the middle of the night. Usually I stumble to the kitchen for a glass of water, then it's right back to bed. I shook the sleep out of my eyes. After a moment of contemplation, I stood and nearly tripped over my dog Lola. That was unusual. The door to my room was closed to keep the dog out. As I walked past the corner of my bed, I saw a muted shape in my armchair. Thinking one of the roomies left a bag on my bed, I walked right up to it and poked it in the darkness. To my surprise, it replied,
"Cut the piggy and save some for me,"
said Mike. I screamed out of my skin, not ashamed to admit that. I tried everything from shaking him to kicking his feet. I didn't want to insult the guy too bad. Maybe it was just really bad sleepwalking, but nothing at all woke him up.
"Cut the cow. Its blood can be sold in town. Cut the cow. Its blood can be sold in town. Cut the cow. Its blood can be sold in town."
Mike repeated the phrase over and over again from the armchair. He never moved or flinched an inch, and barely responded to my attempts to restrain my kicks, shoves, and slaps. After 5 minutes, I gave up and brought my bed sheets down to the living room. He wasn't violent, at least. He just sat there. It was creepy, but possibly explainable. After settling in on the couch downstairs, I was over it. I was prepared to write the whole thing off as a weird sleep issue described in the email. Shortly before falling back asleep, I heard footsteps leaving my bedroom. I called out to Mike not so nicely to tell him off for waking me up, but nobody answered. Soon enough, the footsteps dragged down the padded carpet steps to our living room. Then they stopped at the bottom.
"Cut the little piggy and save some for me,"
the voice said in a robotic tone. I got up from the couch, grabbed my keys, and sprinted out of the door. As I opened it, I caught a glimpse of Mike down the hallway. He was staring at the microwave in the kitchen, mumbling the same words to himself. I resigned to spend the rest of the night sleeping in my car outside. It was uncomfortable. When you're a teenager, sleeping in your car is a lot more manageable. As an adult, I felt like an asshole. I should have known the guy was a weirdo from the start. I got about 2 additional hours of sleep before the rising sun peeked through my windshield. That day was a work day, but I was unshaven and disgusting. I needed to go back inside to change and wash the stink of the morning off my skin. When I opened the car door, Mike was standing on the other side, outside. He was wearing his corny bowler cap on top of his best bedroom gear, which was boxers and a white t-shirt. He wasn't wearing his glasses.
"Cut the piggy and save some for me,"
he said again. I fucking punched him in the face. Honestly, after being woken up 3 times in the night by this guy, he's lucky it was the least I did. As soon as my fist connected with his nose bone, Mike let out a high-pitched shriek as he fell to the sharp gravel grounds of the parking lot. "What the fuck, man?" he said, bewildered from the floor. Finally. I went to the rental office this morning and asked them to evict him. They refused. The contracts have already been signed, and his rent and security deposits have been paid. It's hard to explain the uneasy feeling in my stomach right now. I'm at work, waiting and hoping for somebody to find a solution to get this guy out of my house. The time is currently 1:24, and Mike is still there. He texted me that we needed to talk. I got a lock at Home Depot, but I am absolutely terrified to go to sleep tonight.